questions we wrestle with as Christians about who God is, how do we live out our faith, what is the Bible, what is the truth of the Bible, what are we supposed to believe, how are we supposed to live? There are really big, deep questions that we ask each other, that we ask God, that we wrestle with ourselves. And that's why the Cultivate Podcast exists, to help us go deeper in our understanding of who God is, His Word, and the way that He's called us to live. Everyone, welcome to the Cultivate Podcast through the Grove Church. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor there, here with
Abigail Boone,
multimedia
content creator
for both the Grove and other clients
and others.
If you would like to, if you need multimedia content created,
you can go to a.boonecreative.com. Or I think it's com.
Say
I
that
should
again.
know that. A.boonecreative.
A.boone?
Creative.
A.boonecreative.com.
Yeah.
So boonecreative.com, but
Correct.
with an A.
A.boone.
Wow, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, man.
A.boone.
I think it's that. I haven't been on it in a little bit.
Good luck finding
I
Abigail's
updated on the
website,
back end.
guys.
If it's not, you can type in A Boone Creative and it'll pop up there on the first search.
Start with the search engine.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah.
Well, we are still talking about soteriology, the study of salvation. And we spent some time just kind of talking a big overview of the gospel. Then we spent some time talking about the theory of atonement referred to that we believe, which is
substitution.
Right. And then we spent some time talking about whether or not you can lose your salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I suggested, as we were going through those two, that we're barely covering those two topics very well because there are a lot of other different theories of atonement, which surprised you.
I didn't know there was multiple.
And then when we talked about losing your salvation, I just kind of made a very affirmative case for it based on one passage, avoiding a lot of the other passages on it. And so I said we could come back to that. But first, after we did those three, we talked last week about the importance of the resurrection in salvation. So now we're going to come back around to what I said.
It is important.
We decided we're
pro-resurrection.
We like it. We think it's a good idea. We keep Easter going, guys, every year. But could we get it off of the lunar calendar? Just somehow.
How do you know about the lunar calendar?
Turn it into something closer to Memorial Day. It's like the third Sunday in April or the first Sunday in April.
I don't like that with any of those things. I would like Christmas 100% doesn't matter what year it is. It's on the 25th.
Well,
why can't Easter just be on the day?
Easter has to be on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Right?
So why don't you?
Right.
Well, okay. I guess that makes sense.
Right. So it needs to be on a Sunday. And these other ones, they're going to be on Mondays so that you can get the full
Does it have to be on a Sunday? Just because you
Easter,
say because we're going to church, that's why it has to be on Sunday?
It's, and Jesus was resurrected on a Sunday, and it's
He was?
Yeah. Did
they call it Sunday?
No.
So how do you know?
The first day of the week.
Well, that's
Sunday.
Are you sure?
Am I sure Sunday is the first day of the week?
No.
Right in,
sure
guys.
That's what they meant?
And Abigail Boone at thegrovechurch.org. Tell her whether or not she's...
Are you sure that's what they meant?
They meant the day that we now call Sunday, yes. Because it was the day after the Sabbath, which is Saturday.
I feel like this is flaky, but we'll get back to it later.
Oh, my word.
They just had such
Next
a different
thing you know,
world
you're going to be questioning my math. You don't think that people understood a 7-day week?
No, I think... Sure, I think they could have I didn't know.
And they had a Sabbath every 7 days. Jesus, God created the world in 7 days.
Pause. Lower your guns.
7 days.
Lower.
Creates the world in 6, rests on the 7th. The 7th day is the Sabbath day. And then eventually we have English word names that we have for them. And the last day of the week is called Saturday. It's the Sabbath day. And then the first day of the week is Sunday. And so Jesus was resurrected
onto theirs?
Jesus was resurrected the day after the Sabbath, the day that we would call Sunday. That's 100%.
All right.
100%.
Do our days map onto theirs?
Can we say with 100% certainty that our Sunday is the exact same first day of the week from 2,000 years ago? I would imagine that smart people would say yes.
Okay, so it's not 100%.
But it is now how we have organized the week. And so, yeah, we want to do it on what is our Sunday. That's what we want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look it up later.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll catch us next week. All right. Different theories of atonement. So we're just going to kind of work our way through a few of these. We've already talked about penal, penal, penal substitutionary atonement. Jesus takes the punishment for humanity's sin.
Penal means punishment.
Penal means with respect to laws.
Oh, okay.
Like it's the justice system.
Okay.
A penal code is like the set of laws.
Mm-hmm.
So he's takes the punishment for humanity's sin, satisfying God's judgment, substitutes himself for sinners, bearing the penalty we deserve. The thing that we talked about. You owe a penalty. You owe that penalty to God. In order for God to his justice to be satisfied, a debt has to be paid. Either you pay it or someone else has to pay it. So Jesus pays it. All right. All right. So we got a few of these other ones. Christ the victor.
Okay.
Jesus' death and resurrection are a victory over the powers of sin and death and the devil. It's a cosmic triumph that liberates humanity from bondage. Right? So sin puts us in bondage, and Jesus just dominated it, and now we're free.
Are you going to explain why you disagree with these? Because that sounded pretty good to me.
Sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. We'll keep going. Moral influence.
Okay.
Jesus' death is primarily a demonstration of God's immense love, designed to inspire humanity to repent, live righteously, and love God in return.
Sound kind of runs a little short, but I mean,
you like that one less.
It's all true, but not the main point.
But then salvation comes from my act of contrition, as opposed to the thing that Jesus did.
Right.
That's its biggest weakness.
Okay.
Ransom theory. Jesus' life and death is a ransom paid to Satan or to God in some cases to free humanity from the devil's dominion, which was gained through sin. So because you have sinned, you are now on the devil team.
Okay.
And in order to get you back, essentially you have willingly kidnapped yourself or allowed yourself to be kidnapped.
Right.
And now in order to get you back, a ransom has to be paid to get you back.
Mm-hmm. I don't agree with that one.
You don't like that one?
Well, I don't think he's paying the debt to the devil. I think he's making up for God's standard.
So that, yeah.
Like so the devil is a player, but he's not the one who's paying back.
The ransom theory and substitutionary atonement are two. They're close, right? I mean, something has to be paid to somebody, and why?
Right.
And those.
I'm really excited what movies you're going to choose.
Governmental theory.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Jesus' death upholds God's moral government and law, demonstrating the seriousness of sin to the universe so that God can forgive sinners without undermining his righteous rule. It is a public display of justice, not necessarily a direct payment of individual penalties.
Oh. I don't like that.
It just a little bit sounds like substitutionary atonement, but
without applying to everyone. Well,
without and taking kind of a little bit of taking God's bloodlust out of it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Recapitulation theory.
Woo.
Jesus lives a perfect human life, fulfilling what Adam failed to do, and reverses the course of humanity's rebellion, culminating in his triumph over death. So he kind of redirects.
Right, so, yeah. I don't think
we were all going this way, and then we come back this way.
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Well, we didn't become robots after the resurrection and all start doing good.
Well, at least now we're now headed that direction because of what Jesus did. You now have the ability to do that. You could only do this. Now you have the possibility of doing this. All right. So here's what's going to happen.
Say that last one again.
The
R word.
Recapitulation.
Recapitulation.
Yeah, you just got to redirect. He redirected.
Okay.
All right. So in the course of this discussion, we're going to look at kind of some deaths that have happened in various movies and books.
Yay.
And figure out kind of which one they align with, maybe to help us understand it a little bit.
Well, you say the name of the movie first so you don't spoil anything.
So here's the thing. Now, here's the thing I'm going to say. Here's some potential things that we might spoil today.
But I'm the important one.
Chronicles of Narnia.
Okay.
I don't really like this one. We got some Marvel here with Iron Man, and you've already referenced this last week. We got Black Widow, Spock in Star Trek 2. Are you familiar with that?
Nah, but I don't care about that one.
There are at least a couple of different deaths in Harry Potter that I feel like could apply.
Sure.
There's a couple of deaths in The Lord of the Rings that could apply.
Okay, I don't care about that one.
Some things in The Matrix, The Green Mile.
Oh my gosh, what a good movie!
A Tale of Two Cities. Right, we've got a few of these.
Green Mile,
Braveheart, right? Braveheart.
I haven't seen that in forever.
Okay, so you just pick one. You pick one.
Let's start with John Coffey.
John Coffey. Okay, John Coffey.
And all the flies come out of his mouth.
Right.
If you haven't seen that movie, you should see that movie. That's a really good movie. Great cast.
All right, so John Coffey. A fairly innocent dude. So we've already got some Jesus parallels here. Mm-hmm. He's a complete innocent, and he unintentionally gets framed for a murder by, in fact, trying to bring life to the two girls that were murdered.
Yeah,
he was trying to heal them, and quote, I couldn't take it away. Right, is what he says. And throughout his life, after he's on death row, he heals at least two other people. Again, a very Jesus figure, a healer. Essentially, I mean, the healing that he does for that one dude's wife is almost a resurrection. I mean, she's not all the way dead, but she is all but dead. The thing that he does for Tom Hanks is more of like a UTI, right? Right, but that the woman was almost dead.
Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump in that movie?
I do not believe so.
Okay,
I don't believe so.
Sorry, I got to refrain the movie talk in this.
Okay. And so then he dies an unjust death. Who does he die for?
I mean, I guess for the person who actually did commit.
Well, that dude, they ended up finding out who that dude was, and he ended up dying anyway.
Right, so not really.
Right.
So he was kind of just representational, but not really. I don't know who I would say he died for.
So then so he dies, and it has an effect. What effect does it have?
Well, somewhat regret.
Amongst the people, right? I mean, amongst the people that he didn't die for. Right. That is probably the best example of kind of the moral influence theory.
Yeah, they did. Yes, they modeled their life.
They were inspired by what a good person he was, the peace and humility with which he accepted his fate, and they were inspired to be better people. Yeah. Right.
Is that one is called moral atonement?
Yeah, the moral example.
Okay.
Also, possibility of a little bit of the recapitulation.
Right.
Right. We're just out here living our lives this way, and then we see this, and it's like
redirects us a little bit.
It redirects us a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
New capacity to live a different way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the Tale of Two Cities?
I know it ish, but not so. I know they're like living parallel lives, right? Mm-hmm. I've never seen it, but I know I have heard about it multiple times. It's an old movie, isn't it? Oh, it's a Charles Dickens book. I mean, so and the base movies on it, right? And so he is this he dies for someone who he essentially dies for his doppelganger. Uh-huh. Right. And so he was not a good person. Mm-hmm. And someone who was a good person was his doppelganger was going to die, and he dies for him. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it a little bit difficult in that that seems almost like the devil theory.
He was the bad guy, but he becomes a good guy. Mm-hmm. But I think it's probably very close to substitutionary atonement.
I was gonna say, it seems like substitutionary.
Someone committed a crime,
I'm going to take the crime for the other person, right? And that's probably, to me, that's probably the most straightforward of those. A crime has been committed. Somebody needs to die. I'll die instead of him.
Right.
That is probably the closest to substitutionary atonement.
Right.
All right. So give me another one.
Let's do Iron Man.
Iron Man. Okay.
This is really interesting.
Okay.
I don't know what he would represent other than sadness.
Okay. So, Thanos is about to destroy everything again, but this time we're going to reduce the whole thing to atoms and start completely over. He steals the stones off of his hand, puts them on his glove. Yeah. I am Iron Man. Snap. Yeah. And that kills him. It ultimately kills him. What did he die to do? To save the universe. He saved the universe. He saved the universe through his death.
Is this like the ransom one?
In what way? We'll talk it out.
Well, I mean, he basically is dying so no one else is subject to the death that Thanos was going to have happen. Also, I guess Thanos was trying to save them from famine. But like either he could die and take on all of it, or it was going to affect multitudes of other people.
All right, let me read you one of these more obscure ones that I'm sure you're just hearing about. The governmental theory. Okay. Jesus' death upholds God's moral government and law, demonstrating the seriousness of sin to the universe so that God can forgive sinners without undermining his righteous rule. It is a public display of justice, not necessarily a direct payment of individual penalties.
I'd say that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of. He is sacrificing himself in order to set things right. If I don't do this, the world is going to decay, right? And I can set it right by this powerful demonstration of love and sacrifice, right?
For the sake of but it didn't apply to. It didn't necessarily map
no one had done anything wrong, right? I mean the people that he died for, none of them had done anything wrong, right? So but he saved them from a terrible fate by a powerful demonstration of love and justice.
Okay, let's take a hop, skip, and a jump over to Black Widow.
Okay, staying in the MCU.
Yes.
Okay,
I feel like that's a pretty substitutionary atonement one, because a sacrifice needed to be made for sure. And someone could have made, it's not all substitutionary because it doesn't apply to everyone, but it's kind of like the 1-to-1 ratio that like, I'm going to die in your place so this can be fulfilled.
Yeah. So narrowly, she dies for Hawkeye. But not because Hawkeye had done anything wrong per se. And who is she paying the price to?
I don't remember that guy's name.
The Red Skull?
Okay, yeah.
But he's just the guardian.
But maybe is it more close to the ransom? Like there's I'm good at this game.
Jesus' life and death is a ransom paid to Satan or to God in some variation to free humanity from the devil's dominion, which was gained through sin. In order to get this stone, which would then be a part of this thing to save humanity, a price just had to be paid.
Right.
A price has had to be paid, not to satisfy some sort of justice, but in order to set things right and to liberate the stone and to then ultimately liberate humanity, a ransom has to be paid.
Yeah.
And almost to whom is a little bit irrelevant.
He is kind of a random character. Red Skull.
He was from the original Captain America movie.
It was like
he touches the Tesseract and gets kind of beamed out of there, and now is like, because of his greed, has to play this role.
Like when he showed back up, I was like, "Whoa, throwback! Whoa. Forgot about you.
Where'd you come from?" Chronicles of Narnia.
I don't know it as well, sadly.
Okay. But that was a very intentional.
Who died? Is it Aslan?
The lion.
Okay.
Right, and that was a very intentional Christian allegory. Some of these other ones are kind of like.
But did they line up with substitutionary? I don't really know anything about the death story of it. You're gonna have to fill me in on the rest of them.
Right, and so So Edmund, the younger of the brothers, has betrayed humanity.
Oh.
And as such deserves to die.
Okay.
But Aslan can take the penalty for him.
Okay.
So in a very narrow way, he is paying for Edmund's sin.
Mm-hmm.
But who's he paying this price to is the witch.
Okay.
Which deviates it from penal substitutionary atonement, which kind of makes it kind of somewhere in between substitutionary atonement and ransom theory. Mm-hmm. But also allow me to read this one again.
Okay.
Christ the victor. Jesus' death and resurrection are a victory over the powers of sin, death, and the devil. It's a cosmic triumph that liberates humanity from bondage, because the way the dark magic or the deep magic was written, it was him dying for Edmund was this powerful victory over the White Witch's power that she held over the universe, because it was also written that he would come back to life and then he would have this renewed power and her power would diminish. And so it would not surprise me. I did not look this up beforehand. It would not surprise me if C.S. Lewis
was
Christ the victor, if that was not his.
Is the incredibly wrong to think like that theory is true, but that's not what salvation is? Like, it was victorious and it did do all those things, but that's not what.
One of the elders in our church, and because this is a public podcast, I won't say which one, is a big believer in that, what we believe at the church. But I remember him saying, is it okay for me to be an elder that I believe in substitutionary atonement, but it's not the only one I believe in?
Yeah.
That I believe that there are elements of these other ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
It's really hard to disagree with Jesus' death and resurrection are a victory over the powers of sin and death and the devil. It is a cosmic triumph that liberates humanity from bondage. It's hard. That's hard to disagree with,
because I kind of feel like last episode I said kind of
right, but pure substitutionary atonement people will be like, how did it triumph? But how did it?
Yeah.
Like, but what did it do?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean do? It did. Right.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Okay. Oh, we should do Harry Potter next.
Okay. So spoilers. I accidentally, this was like 5 or 6 years ago, from stage, apparently spoiled Harry Potter to somebody who was reading the book. And I don't know if you.
Greg. Was that Greg?
It was Craig. But it's hard. I mean, how do you spoil a 25-year-old book? But anyways, so spoilers here. So there are 2 significant deaths in Harry Potter. So turn it off, guys. Last chance. Dumbledore dies.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking him.
And Harry Potter dies.
I wasn't even thinking him either.
Who were you thinking about?
Snape. That was a long suffering and a super symbolic death.
But who did he didn't his death was significant. I mean, Harry Potter's is the closest to Jesus because he
actually came back to life.
He dies, dies, and ultimately his death, now everyone is protected from Voldemort's and his people's spells. Mm-hmm. Like, their spells no longer are binding.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, just all sorts of imagery. Mm-hmm. So you got to start with Harry Potter.
Okay.
You got to start. If you're going to figure out that he is clearly the Jesus figure in there. And so he died, and his mom the same way, right?
Yeah.
She died to save her.
I would have gone for Lily and Snape before the other two.
Harry Potter is absolutely number one.
Okay.
I mean, there's so much sacrificial death in there. I mean, if you're gonna make me pick another one, I'm picking Dobby.
Oh, and Sirius.
Sirius died. Hot take here. He died because he was being too braggadocious. He was bragging while he was maybe.
I boo-hooed in that book.
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
As far as someone, I'm going to die so someone else doesn't have to die. Dying tragically in a war battle like Sirius does, or say Lupin and Tonks or whatever. That's one thing, right? But Harry Potter, both Harry Potter and Dumbledore both willingly die for some greater purpose.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what would separate them from from Snape, who tragically dies.
Or one other.
Right. But these two, I'm choosing to die in order to bring about some greater good.
Mm-hmm.
And so Harry Potter dies willingly.
Mm-hmm.
In part that then it would be I guess they hadn't killed the snake yet. Spoilers.
Right.
Right. They are one step away from, his death wasn't going to be quite enough.
Right.
We still hadn't killed this. It gave them the potential. Maybe this is where the Christian imagery comes into it. It now gives them the potential to overcome.
Wait, the snake happens after he comes back?
The snake was the last Horcrux, and then Voldemort could be killed. Right. And so, but it's like he died so that then they could be set free from this villain. So it was not really substitutionary atonement.
That feels more like is Ransom the one where you're paying for the devil's side?
Right.
Or the devil's ticket? Because he literally was a part of the bad.
Yeah. So a suggestion here is Christ the victor. I'll read this to you. Harry's willingness to die allows the piece of Voldemort's soul within him to be destroyed. The act of self-sacrifice disarms Voldemort of his ultimate power over death and delivers the wizarding world from his tyrannical reign. It's a direct consequence of evil and death. His return from the limbo state further emphasizes the victory over death. So it really was more just kind of again, the last enemy that shall be defeated is death.
Right.
And so it really does have that victory over evil and death to it more than substitutionary.
Yeah. Remember when I tried to understand the Trinity as Horcruxes?
I do remember that. Dumbledore's death probably has a little bit of substitutionary atonement in it, in that, if he died so Draco wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
And Draco was in that situation not only because of his sin, but because of his family's sin. And, and we see this not to the last book, but right, that he's like, I can't have Draco's soul maimed on my account.
Mm-hmm.
And this would kill him. If I don't let him if I don't die, they're going to kill him. If I let him kill me, it will destroy his soul. And he and Snape together come up with this plan. So
you could kind of, in a stretch, say that was the redirecting one too. His family had kind of the capacity to turn once.
Right.
Draco was spared, or his mom and him.
Yeah, I mean, and it at least okay. This is a different podcast,
Okay.
But I am very beginning to end very anti-Malfoy family. There's nothing that happened.
Really?
There's nothing that happened at the end of that book that all three of them still shouldn't be in jail.
Oh, well, for sure.
All three of them should be in jail.
But you were fine with them being a part of the story.
Oh yeah, but there's no they I would not say that they have a redemption arc. Even if you get into Cursed Child, see that play, there's still no thank you.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So anyway, those are some of our other theories, some of which we agree with but don't feel like are enough, some of which we kind of go and some of us like, well, no, not really, right?
But there are some people that agree with one of them and don't agree with
there are a lot of people in Christianity that feel that substitutionary atonement is really insulting God, to say that he is so bloodthirsty, I have to kill my son before I'm willing to forgive you.
Well, isn't that what kind of not the exact same way, but Ransom is kind of like that. But
it's one thing to kind of have to
pay the devil compared to paying yourself.
Pay some cosmic price in order to rebalance the universe, as opposed to God saying, I ain't forgiving nobody unless I get my blood.
Well, none of the other ones.
That is one of the primary objections to it.
It seems like none of the other ones really hit on God's holiness, though. Of who he actually is and what our sin, what the offense was. Yeah, his holiness.
And again, the beauty, or I think the theological beauty, I guess, of the substitutionary atonement is it really builds on the sacrificial system, the scapegoat from Leviticus, of just this idea of God demonstrating from the very beginning the blood sacrifice that is required for sin as a real demonstration of how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is way worse than you've done something bad. And again, some of those other ones do too. And so I'm not here today to knock any of these except for moral example theory.
Okay.
I mean, that's the one, like you,
right.
like even, yeah, that's not it.
Yeah.
But these other ones are, I feel like, can kind of give a little bit of shine.
Shape, yeah.
Give shape to it. But I still think at its core,
yeah,
the wages of sin is death.
Yeah.
That's
well, and I also, and maybe I'm focusing on it too much, but I just think you lose all relativity if it's not in relation to God's standard and his design.
Yeah.
And I feel like substitutionary atonement is the only one that acknowledges that to the degree that it makes that an important factor. Because if you think sin, you're like, according to what?
Right.
You know?
Right. So that was a creative idea that I had.
I love that.
You can let me know.
Did you write out those explanations, or is that on some website where people also think like us?
Well, no, I came up with the idea, and this is part of a back and forth between me and an AI
Gemini?
program. Yeah, okay, me and an AI program. It's like I had the idea, and I don't know. This sounds so, I don't know. It's going to sound really weird. But as I'm kind of going back and I'm kind of talking about it, I mean, at one point, Google Gemini says, "This is a fascinating exercise."
You impressed it.
I'm like, yeah, it is.
That's the goal.
Yeah, it is.
To blow AI's socks off.
Maybe I'm the first person to have thought of this. And so I get
funny.
some point somewhere in Google headquarters.
That's funny.
Anyways,
I love that.
Thank you so much for joining us. And again, if you have any comments or questions, you can always find us at info@thegrovechurch.org or thegrovechurch.org/connect. Send us questions, comments. We would love to hear from you. And also our website is a great place to find out more information about what we're doing on Sundays and ways you can get better connected. We would love to do that with you. So again, Abigail, thank you. And thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for listening to the Cultivate Podcast. Our hope is that you are taking steps to go deeper in your faith, that you are asking big questions and you're looking for answers. We hope that we can be a resource for you through our podcast and any other way that we can help you. You can find all our episodes anywhere that you can find podcasts, including YouTube. And again, thank you so much for joining us.